So, hello and welcome to season 5 of the Mundane to Magical Online Summit series. My name is Louise Matson, and as always, I'm truly blessed to be your host. Today, I'm really excited to welcome back a wonderful speaker who joined us last season, Nicolas David Ngan. Nicolas developed the powerful and profoundly transformative body of soul contract work at the Center for Conscious Ascension in conjunction with Dr. Almira Ariel Haller. And they are both regarded as world leaders in this field and have been working at the cutting edge of raising human consciousness for over 30 years. Nicolas's interview will be based upon over 50 years of their combined experience in helping thousands of people around the world to understand their lives, embody and express their higher consciousness, and transmute their emotional separation programming, so enabling them to create more fulfilling and empowered, joyful, and conscious lives. The topic for today's conversation is it really the end of times or a new beginning for humanity? And I'm sure that during the last 12 months, we've all been pondering this question at some point. I know I have. So I'm excited to hear what Nicolas has to share about the Great Awakening and what we're currently experiencing on a global scale. So it's my absolute pleasure and honour to welcome you back to the show, Nicolas.
Thanks for having me again, Louise. Really looking forward to this one. We have a hot topic tonight.
It is a hot topic, and it's a very apt topic for the times that we are living in. I know when I came in over 50 years ago, these kinds of conversations would never have taken place. So the fact that we're actually able to come on a live stream and have these discussions about ascension, about shifting consciousness, actually just shows the kind of the growth in consciousness that globally we're all experiencing anyway. Now, I know that you've been working yourself within the field of shifting consciousness and ascension for over 30 years, and therefore you have a really deep and probably far more objective understanding of what we're all collectively experiencing at this time than many people. So I'm really excited for you to share with us in this conversation your take on current events, but also, the topic title, which is, a good topic title is kind of hits you between the eyes. Is it really the end times, or is it a new beginning for humanity? So from your perspective, what is going on, and why has the world suddenly seemed to have gone completely crazy over the past year?
Well, I was at a friend's place this afternoon before coming home to do this, and I shared with them that when I was at high school, these born-again Christians were talking. They had these cartoon books trying to convert everyone to be Christians, and they're talking about the end times, and they're talking about what's going on now. And I thought, these guys are crazy. And now I realize they're telling the truth. That's 35, 40 years on, and they knew something. So I don't feel it's the end times. I feel it's the end of an old way that we've been on Earth for thousands of years.
Mm.
And we're going to birth a new civilization out of this chaos. And I'm optimistic that some very positive changes are coming our way right now. In this next year, it's going to be pretty amazing. If go on.
No, I was going to say, people talk about the age of Aquarius and the golden age, and coming out of what they call the Kali Yuga, which is kind of like the dark period, and up into this golden era. So that's basically what you kind of feel and sense that we're kind of moving and shifting into.
Yeah, we playing what's called a game of separation from spirit, and this game is played on many planets. I mean, NASA reckons there's 40 billion habitable planets like ours in this galaxy alone. And so what's happening at a broader level is that the Creator, God in the spiritual sense, all that is, wanted to know itself. It's the God of this universe, because there are many universes. And what it did is it created an outbreath of consciousness of itself. So it spent a lot of time apparently thinking about what's going on and for its existence, but I wanted to experience it. So what it did is it expanded its consciousness out, and drop them into denser and denser levels of existence. So if you think of all that is at the 12th dimensional level in this model, worked its way down by expanding its consciousness as one unity of energy through the 11th, 10th, 9th, 8th, all the way down to this third dimensional reality. So the further you got away from all that is, the more you felt separate from it, till it got to the point where in this third dimensional reality where our souls, which are sparks of the source of all that is, we actually forgot that's who we are. And we woke up in these bodies, having been expelled into this world from our mother's womb, thinking, God's abandoned me. I don't feel worthy to be loved because God abandoned me, dropped me on the third rock from the sun. And I don't trust God either, which turn out to be the three primary ego programs which create all of us in some unique combination. And you think, well, why would you want to do that? Well, the spark of the divine in us created our personality with those three core ego programs: abandonment, lack of trust, and unwillingness to be loved by God, to see if we could get back in consciousness to the one infinite creator, which is why we're here, which is why there's life on millions and billions of planets, to have a unique experience of being separate from God. Because when we're under stress, both personally and at the moment globally especially, we tend to grow a lot. Yes. And wake up a lot. And that's the way it works. We need the stress to grow. If it was all hunky-dory, we'd just sit back and sip margaritas and wouldn't do much. But everyone's doing an awful lot at the moment. They're growing very fast and waking up. So this was deliberately created, this matrix, this reality, this hologram, so we could feel that separation. But every hologram has a limited lifetime. It has a 25,000 year lifetime in this case. So what happens here is that we go through periods of great darkness over that 25,000 year cycle. You and I are talking about the Kali Yuga. We've been in sleep for a very long time. We're coming out of a period of great darkness because we have to go to sleep as a civilization in order to experience the awakening, which is what's going on. That's what the Great Awakening is about. But in order to be this separate from Mother, Father, God, we have to have what we call points of darkness. We have to have energies and consciousness and beings who hold that separation. Otherwise, we don't have that. We can't play this game because we wouldn't believe it's real. But that darkness is currently being revealed in the world very overtly now, because in order to return home to the Creator, we need to bring consciousness to darkness. They say that, was it John or whatever in the Bible? I used to think it was Jesus, but someone said in the Bible, truth shall set you free. Basically what they're saying is that light, consciousness brought to darkness is how we become free. And that is the process we're going through right now. So all that's been hidden is revealing itself so that humanity can bring consciousness to this. And once we bring maximum consciousness to the darkness in the world, which is ultimately light just playing a role, there's no real good or evil. It's all one infinite soul. We're all part of the same soul. Everyone in the world is all part of one great soul. Everything's just part of the Creator. Just knowing itself in a very specific way. So we must bring consciousness to all the unconscious darkness, all the supposed evil. And then once enough consciousness has been brought to that, this polarity, this game of separation dissolves. The points of darkness unpin. They let go. And we rise in consciousness very rapidly, which is what's been happening. A lot of people have been waking up very quickly in this year. And they realize what's been going on. Okay. And so we have to go to sleep. Otherwise, we wouldn't engage with this game of separation as if it's real. And some people wake up faster than others. It's just the nature of it that we all came to experience this. So nothing has actually gone wrong in the world. This is a natural process that happens on every planet which has a sentient life in its own unique way. We break free from the darkness, we bring light to it. We heal the polarized good and evil consciousness. we return to unity ultimately. Maybe we forgive. A lot of people find that hard. But we also disclose enormous information on what's actually really been going on, which is information very hard for most people to handle, maybe have been unconscious and asleep, who've been brainwashed, programmed by the matrix, which is what happens in every game of separation. So it's an experiment to see how we wake up, how we cope, how we get home to a great spirit. And it's unique every time this happens on the planet.
I mean, I always I know that I've been shown years ago that, you know, it's very much everybody is playing their perfect role, and there are no mistakes and there are no victims and perpetrators, because as part of the all that is, we're all one, and in different lifetimes and things, we've all played these different roles ourselves, which in a way is why we get triggered by it, because it's triggering a memory of, you know, oh, I did that, you know, I was a destroyer of worlds in, you know, in a previous lifetime.
I remember doing that.
Yeah, me too. and I guess from a perspective of, as you're waking up and being able to connect in with that, in a way, divine neutrality of this bigger perspective of what's going on, it makes it easier in a way to kind of handle the external events that we see, because they can be extremely triggering for people, and challenging. But like you say, it's those challenges that enable growth. Because looking back on my life, it's been the biggest challenge points in my life, the biggest pain points that have kind of leapfrogged me into massive spiritual growth, massive awakening of myself, from a much wider perspective. And I, like you say, I don't think I would have gone so far so quickly had those pain points not occurred.
Yeah, well, this is how we grow. We didn't used to have veil and consciousness when there was first incarnate life in this universe. We were embodied, but we had complete connection to God consciousness. So guess what happened? We just laid around, did nothing, learned nothing. And the spiritual hierarchy said, well, that didn't work. No one's growing, so we need plan B. And this is plan B. You guys are going to go to sleep. And then we'll see what you do as life unfolds and the challenges and stresses come, because that's how you're going to learn. Because when we're in pain, we want to move away from it. It's the opposite of that. So we need to find, how do we overcome that? What is the lesson? Okay, how do we transform the karma? How do we transform this programming? How do you transform darkness into light, poison into nectar? Which is what we're doing right now. That's the challenge, and not even God knows how that will turn out. We collectively are working this whole thing out. So it's really important not to give up in terms of returning back to consciousness. We're all an integral part of that, and to focus on creating unity, dissolving polarity, creating more love in the world, because collectively our greatest power as humanity is our ability to manifest. And we all focus on the same thing. That is what's going to happen really quickly. It's the biggest secret hidden from us. Our collective consciousness can completely change this if we all do focus on the same thing, moving back to oneness. And then all the separation, all the stuff we see in the world going on will just disappear, because there has to be an energy from the collective consciousness to support it. What it is it's showing our hidden shadow, which is in every human. And most of the time we don't want to look at that, which is normal, but we need to look at it. We need to look at our own darkness. And if enough people transform the darkness, the shadow within them, into positive, empowering gifts of service, then the world changes. So there are no victims. We play equally in different incarnations roles of victims and perpetrators. There are no goody two-shoes for the righteous. It does not exist. So I remember in my lifetime when I was very destructive. So, but now they turn me into a healer and a teacher. So I guess this is my karma. I've got to be better behaved this time. Can't quite do the things I used to get up to.
No, I mean, I as part of my journey and the realization that I was actually scared of standing in my power, that linked back to previous lifetimes where I'd abused that power or misused that power. And so yeah, it's just all of those distortions that kind of become the core program that we have within our system in this lifetime, that we get to kind of shine the light on and just release and let go with love and without judgment. And I think that the shadow work is one of the most key things for people to be allowing themselves the process of during this awakening, because for me it really is about bringing all aspects of us to the table, and if we can bring all aspects of ourselves to the table, then we can create unity on the outside, because it's a mirror reflection of what's going on inside. So from your perspective then, and I know you've kind of alluded to this earlier on by saying, you didn't think it was the end of times, and you did think that we were heading towards this kind of new beginning, golden era. What is your perspective of where it's all heading? And if you have any thoughts or any insights, where do you think it's kind of going to be heading over the next 12 months?
I would say we're at a nexus point. It's feeling the energy I felt like the past year, ever since I remember March 2020, when the whole thing started to happen, when we were all very scared of what was going on. That helped a lot of us get to our core fears. The thing is that we create our reality in each moment. It's a hologram. So we're emanating and 100% responsible for what we're creating. So we're collectively creating this. And so we're collectively creating this at a soul level, which is why you notice how everyone's exhausted.
Yeah.
The reason is because we're collectively trying to work this thing out, especially at night. We're in meetings and stuff, trying to work this thing out. Okay, where are we going next? We wake up feeling I had no sleep. A lot of people are saying this to me. It just doesn't matter what I do. I've been working hard all night.
Yeah.
And because we have on the astral plane, my dreams are very vivid, so I know I'm up to something. So I didn't feel like I actually went to sleep some nights. So sound familiar?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So what I believe is happening is that the old structure of human civilization, which has been running for thousands of years, with all its complexities and all the hidden darkness that runs the world, has been completely dismantled. Because the points of darkness that have held us as separate from the Creator are dissolving, which is why you see what's happening in the world. And it is alarming. But the main thing is I've had to pull back from engaging with a lot of what's going on, because if I keep engaging with it and fighting it, I'm creating more of it because I'm giving it attention. It's not about ignoring what's going on, but it's actually focusing on, okay, where do we actually want to go? We've got to focus collectively, because there's 8 billion of us, and we're in the majority, versus those who play the role of points of darkness, and they volunteer to do the hardest role at a soul level. We didn't have them, we couldn't play this game of separation. We couldn't have this learning experience. So it's not some bad accident that happened. This is actually happens on every planet. So it's important to focus on creating the type of world that we do desire, because we're certainly being shown the type of world we don't want, in no uncertain terms. Okay, and people are saying no to that sort of world. The more we focus on where we want to go, the faster we're going to accelerate that. So it'll be a world where we're functioning in a much more unified state, where we're not dominated by money, which is the main control mechanism on Earth. We're focused on following the path of our spirit and following the spiritual signature, where we get to a world where we come here, we can create a world where we and our children have the optimal growth experience, which doesn't mean making a pile of money and having a house and all the other things. Won't be like that. It's more a world where the learning process is quality, living, embodied experience, where we're serving and helping each other rather than competing with each other and fighting each other. We've been doing that for a very long time. We're very good at that, humans. quite a, quite a violent race, but we have the range of emotions we have on Earth is much greater than the average planet. It's very extreme. What happened? Earth is a very extreme place. It's a great learning place as well. So I believe out of all this that we will have a better world. We'll have new governmental structures, social structures, which will serve the growth of individuals rather than what it's doing at the moment is to keep us in this much separation and enslavement, which is deliberately done to see what are we going to do about it? Are we going to break out of this?
One thing that I have noticed is that seems to have really ramped up over the last year. That seems to have been really in your face, whereas it's always kind of been there, but it's been more kind of evasive. It's been more underneath the surface, but just seems like it's just never ending, really in your face all the time. And I suppose that's part of this, the more painful it is, the more angst that's being created, the faster the growth, I suppose.
Well, it's got to the point where you cannot avoid what's going on. You cannot run away and hide because there's nowhere to hide anymore. You've got to deal with your part of it. And what part are each of us going to play to contribute towards that better, more unified world that we desire? Because we're getting everything we don't like at the moment, okay, so that we can focus on what we do want. And I believe that the shift in consciousness, which is going to happen, people are waking up very rapidly from seeing it in my healing and practitioner training practice. People are wanting to come online and serve others and help others. That's what we were born to do. So it's about focusing on what do we want to create, how are we going to go about doing that, and realizing that collectively we have great power, enormous power to completely change the world the way we want. Because if everyone says, well, we're done with this and we want to create that, it's inevitable. Nothing can stop it because it's about the collective deciding what it wants.
Absolutely. Jenny's put that this part of why we need a break in a space, the pandemic time, has been great for that. I do remember back when it all started, I kind of saw it as a golden opportunity for kind of like a great pause. And there was some really beautiful moments where, animals were reclaiming town, the goats were coming into the town in Wales, and cows were going out on the beach and enjoying the sea because there weren't loads of people about, and everybody was given this time for reflection. And I know for me personally, it's really galvanized, this whole period has really galvanized my service work, my commitment to standing in my sovereignty, and also what it is that is my truth. Because I have had so much reflection of what isn't, it's really enabled me to get really super clear on what is my truth and how I want my life to look and how I would want new earth to be, which I don't think I would have probably had such a strong sense of had this not come about. So I do see a lot of positives about the times that we've been in. Maria's put how interesting that this interview is on the day of the full moon in Virgo, which is all about
I'm a Virgo, Marie, so there you go.
It's all about illuminating for each of us just how successfully we've managed to integrate our spiritual infinite selves with our earthly physical selves. I think for me, this whole year, 2021, I was given that it is a year of revelation. So whether that's on a personal level or on a collective kind of global level, we'll see. But it's definitely been a year of illumination for me. I'm just checking to see if there's any other questions. Julie says that she used to agree that nothing is actually bad or wrong, even if it feels that way. But she's also read that the darkness, outer negative interference, has a better hold over humanity due to the amnesia than the light ever expected it would. What do you feel about that?
Well, God, it sets in motion these games of separation on each planet. This is the only reason there are planets. Is to play this game. The planet wasn't there, then we sort of randomly appeared out of the ooze. The whole thing is designed for incarnate life, because we are sparks of the Creator creating through our lives collectively, all 8 billion of us. What happens in a game of separation is that you have force of darkness moves to hold the light from awakening. And the whole point of the game is to see, well, what's going to happen next? So it's not about the light not expecting the darkness to be stronger. It doesn't actually know. You have to get into the game, which each game on each planet has a unique set of rules. Each species sees reality in a unique way in terms of the way its mental and emotional bodies are built, and even if they have an emotional body. And so you have the light pressing at the darkness gives way a little bit, it wakes up, pushes back. This push and pull goes on for 25,000 years in our case. So the creator is wondering, well, how's it going to turn out? But it is inevitable that the light will return to the creator. It's inevitable. It's a done deal because it has to. Because the creator created this out breath, like a rubber band, maximum separation. That was in 1987, harmonic convergence. At that point, the rubber band started retracting, going back to the creator. Okay, but the darkness will try and slow that down as long as it can, because that's its job. It's its job contract from the creator. It volunteered to do that. So we just have to work out how to get there quicker, how to dissolve the unconsciousness, the darkness, the shadow. That's what the whole game is about. How to bring our gifts online. We all have, light workers have very specific gifts. It's 2 or 3% of the population. We volunteered to come to accelerate this game of separation. The 97 and 98% of the population are called the ground crew, who volunteered to go really asleep. Which is why some people find it hard to understand what we're talking about here, what's really going on.
Yeah.
When we're talking quite an esoteric level, we need to understand the 3D nuts and bolts of what's going on. Many people won't believe it because they chose to go really asleep, and that's just part of their role. So it's about, we are co-creating this in each moment. It's not a done deal. So each decision you make, to focus, do I focus on darkness, fighting it, or do I focus on unity and love and creating a better place, a better civilization for our children? Because when the truth is gradually being disclosed of what's been going on in the world, and as darkness is overcome and transmuted, which it will, shows what I believe will happen this year, I'm sure we're going to see some pretty interesting things happening, especially in the next few months. Then the much more higher frequency technologies, which will completely change our civilization, will gradually be revealed. So we'll probably have a different civilization in a few years in terms of the technologies we use altogether, because those technologies will be appropriate for our higher state of consciousness. Okay, so eventually we will get back to unity. We will break free of the stranglehold of the darkness, which is just playing its role.
Cindy's brought up an interesting question. She's heard that as light grows, so must the darkness, because we live in a world of duality. So with that concept, then the light and darkness will be in a constant battle and no one will win, as it were.
Not quite, because the darkness has to hold a specific level of consciousness, a low frequency of consciousness, whereas the light is rising in consciousness. That's what we mean. Light is about consciousness. As it rises, as the further it rises in consciousness, what happens then, it becomes more and more powerful. The darkness cannot match that because it's a lower state of consciousness. Because let's go to the lower state of consciousness, the game's over. It has to hold a lower frequency. That's about enough of us raising in consciousness back to unity, and the darkness will dissolve. It's already dissolving already. It can't hang on anymore. So higher consciousness overcomes lower state of consciousness. There's a good book called Power versus Force by David Hawkins who talks about this. So a very small number of people who hold a higher state of consciousness will transmute all of the darkness. So the key is to get enough of us out of this polarized battle of light and dark into unity, love, then all this just goes away. That's actually the key to the whole thing. That's why it actually works.
I mean, I must admit, when I came in and I felt the energy of the earth, the reason that I didn't want to that I didn't want to ground, because I didn't feel safe here like many people, was because it felt like walking through treacle. The energy just felt so thick. That's the only way that I can describe it. And that was me as a very small child. Then I think it was a year ago, I was in visualization, in a journey in meditation, and I was actually shown there is still darkness, but it's like one last kind of bit. It wasn't
Yeah.
everywhere. It wasn't all pervasive. And
Yeah.
to me, that definitely felt in line with what you've just said. It's like the darkness had shrunk from when I came in to now. So yeah, that definitely resonates with me. And again, when we shine the light on the shadow, we see it for what it is. That's the way that spirit has always shown me the kind of the shadow work, like the analogy of a child who's scared in the dark, and all the shadows are being cast from all the things on his shelf. When you turn the lights on, you realize exactly what they are. They're just your books and your ornaments and your teddy and this and that. It's like light always diminishes the darkness.
Ultimately, yeah, because darkness is just light playing a role. And when everything that can be learnt in a game of separation has been learnt, darkness can go back to light.
Mm.
The whole point.
Yeah, yeah.
There's no absolute darkness. There's no absolute evil or anything like that. It's just light playing a role. So we as sparks of the creator can learn. That's the whole point of it.
Mm.
And we've all learned a lot in the past year about who we are. We've got very focused, as you were saying earlier, on what's really important.
Mm.
Well, our ego indulgences have just got pushed off the edge of the cliff. A whole bunch of stuff doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
We got to what's important. I've noticed that in my teaching practice. People have got to what's really important and getting on with it.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And I can also attest to that. When I was paralyzed in 96, that was a massive wake-up call as to all of the different things that I'd been worried about before suddenly went completely out the window. That's completely irrelevant. It has no bearing anymore, because I had a real kind of wake-up call as to what really was important. And I think the 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 pandemic, the COVID, has given that on a global scale. It's allowed everybody to take that break from all the distractions, if they so chose, and really look at what was important, what
Yeah.
is important to them.
Yeah.
Michelle's got an interesting question. She says her soul is prompting her to have closer links with Agartha, Inner Earth. Can you speak about Inner Earth and their role in our ascension?
Well, there are many civilizations on the inner Earth. In fact, there are more people inside the Earth than on the surface, apparently, I just learned recently, which I a little while to absorb that. There are many civilizations there who are here to assist in the ascension of the planet. And it's much safer for them to be hidden away from us on the inner Earth, and also physically safer, because it can get quite disruptive on the surface of the Earth in previous times. So they're here to help us ascend, because more advanced, more conscious civilizations help. I wouldn't say primitives like us, but we're sort of less conscious civilization, less evolved civilizations grow, which is part of their service to us. So that's what they're here to do. Some of them are here to do that. Others have other agendas. And the idea is to get us through this ascension process of going back to oneness, shifting dimensions as smoothly as possible. It's a vastly complex process, ascending a civilization into a different level of existence, because these experiments in consciousness are so vast in terms of all the variables, all the things that could happen, because no one really knows what's going to happen, because we're all making it up as we go. But the idea is to get us towards the most probable positive outcome that we can, and apparently we're doing pretty well.
Yeah, and I definitely feel a shift. I definitely feel a shift in the energy over the last month. It was.
Yeah, I would agree. This year's been a lot better.
Yeah,
It was pretty dark. I think now I was in with a friend in the car, and I said to her, I feel we're coming out the end of the tunnel, and she agreed, because she could see clearly why coming out the end of the tunnel. It's a question of what sort of light is going to greet us. What sort of world are we going to create? as a result of coming out of the end of that tunnel, despite outer appearances. So
absolutely. And I think as well as we come into kind of like the spring equinox energies, I think it's a good idea for us to actually allow our imaginations to run riot and envision the beautiful world that we would like to see. You know, have that blank sheet of paper, get rid of all the rules of what we've kind of seen life to be, all the structures that we've seen life to have been, and just really just paint on this canvas that we've got this whole new way of being, of living, of experiencing, existing together. And for me, I see us coming together in a lot more community. You know, I've got certain skills, you've got certain skills. I don't need to have all the skills because it's about us all coming together as one. You know, that's kind of what's been flowing through me in terms of my envisioning.
I've been talking to, I was with friends this afternoon, helping one of them pack her house up, getting ready to move. And we've been talking about the idea of forming a community of like-minded souls, having some eco houses and forming real community. Because our villages we used to live in pre-industrial revolution were real communities where generations of the same people in the same village worked and lived there and died there. And so there were deep connections. But with the industrial revolution, people were put in boxes and distributed in the cities, and so the communities were broken up, and that was deliberately done, I believe, so that the cohesion and power of communities was destroyed. So I feel a return to that. I mean, we all work at home now, mostly, so you don't need big cities in the way we used to have them, because suddenly it turns out it is possible with technology to work from home, even though people still like to be in the office. My neighbours tell me that they're all working home. They go in occasionally. So I feel a more genuine community spirit is created. I've got to know all my neighbours because they're all home. Some I've met before. Real community needs to be formed where we are interdependent on each other, rather than this highly competitive dog-eat-dog culture which has been promoted by the darkness in the world. So we're disconnected from each other, where people don't know who their neighbours are. So you live in the middle of London, often people don't know who their neighbours are. There's no real community. In a lot of places, having lived in London. So we get to what's important in relationships, community, love, and being of service to others. All the things which are not promoted in the world are becoming more important to people and looking after each other. Humans naturally want to be in community, look after each other. It's just the way we're built. We're very communal sort of animals, really. And we need to return to that to create a better world. It's not about return on investment. I'd say it's return on love and relationship.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely, and also celebrating the old important times, you know, like harvest and things like that, you know, bringing ceremony back in where we have celebration and we come together. I remember when I had an allotment, you know, I would have a bumper crop of marrows and something else, and someone else would have a bumper crop of something else, and we would share it because I didn't need 20 marrows and they didn't need whatever they had. So it was that, you know, coming together communally and just making sure everybody had something. I know some people are writing questions in the Q&A and some people are writing in the chat. So please feel free. If you have a question that you want to put to Nicolas, then please feel free to ask it. Just be aware that there may be certain topics we are live streaming onto Facebook that may not be able to be spoken of completely candidly, because apparently there are algorithms that will stop the live stream and stop me from being able to upload videos. So just, you know, we are talking from a perspective of ascension. We're talking from a perspective of shifting our consciousness, raising our consciousness, but obviously we are talking about the times that we're currently living in as well. Ah, you got really lovely memories of dancing around a maypole. I do, yes. Just coming together as as community, as local community, because that's the other thing for me as well. You know, there's no, you know, I'm not against traveling and mixing and visiting other places and things. But one of the key things for me over this last 12 months has been about coming together as a local community and, you know, supporting local businesses and rather than purchasing from these kind of faceless global companies, you know, actually supporting the small businesses, local businesses, the producers, the growers. I think that that's really come to the fore as well, and respecting the produce, valuing it. It's increased the value I've had an awareness of people increasing their value of things. That's some of the energies that has been coming through in the last 12 months as well that I've felt has been really positive.
Yeah, well, I think we need to support community businesses more. I agree, in terms of rather than vast companies who focus on return on investment. Support our community and keep it alive and grow it. You know, that's the key, really, because there's enormous power in creating a strong community. It gets us through times like this.
Absolutely, absolutely. So does anybody have any more questions that they wish to ask Nicolas? I know from an astrological perspective, and I know we're not victims to astrological energies, but from an astrological perspective, this year is going to be quite interesting because of the conjunction, well, not the conjunctions, but the squares between Saturn and Jupiter and Uranus, with the conjunctions with Pluto as well. Now, both Pluto and Uranus are all about transformation, change, that, you know, death, rebirth thing, and Uranus is all about you know, new energies and rebellion and things like that. So it does really feel quite strongly that this year is going to be a year of the dismantling of the old structures to bring some form of new in. And I know you have touched on it a little bit, but is there anything that we really need to be doing to bring the best outcome in as quick as possible?
Well, I think that we need to focus on unity. I'm going to say my team is saying guidance team saying forgiveness, but even I find that hard to actually get around. To be honest, I have the opposite reaction to forgiveness, given what I've seen going on in the world. But ultimately, we need to unify as a collective, our individual communities, countries, globally, to create a better world and work together for a change. I think it's really important to meditate and to connect to higher consciousness and allow it to guide us through very complex times where the old ways of doing things really aren't working. And follow what I call the spiritual signature, what opens the heart the most in each moment, and take that action accordingly. That's the key, because higher consciousness, our spirit is guiding us, each of us, to co-create this ascension process. It's very important. Enough of us follow what opens our heart by being clear enough emotionally, then we will co-create a different world. We'll co-create heaven on earth, maybe an overused term. We will co-create the so-called golden age, where humanity is a lot more conscious, where we will have much better systems that work for people rather than against them. We'll have technology which frees us up from a lot of things we need to do. We will have disclosure of extraterrestrial races which are waiting to meet us, who've been through this process, in a way to commune with us, because we're sort of in quarantine at the moment because we're a bit hazardous. We're pretty hazardous at the moment. And then that will give us a completely different perspective meeting races who are vastly more advanced in consciousness and technology. So we won't be the biggest kid on the block anymore. We'll be like the baby.
Yeah.
So that will hopefully humble us and bring in some better behavior. So we can try a bit harder as a race. Okay. Could try harder on the report card for us.
Yeah. I mean, actually, that's one of the things that Spirit has kind of shown me is that, the process of ascension is actually the process of growing up. Because at the minute, we've all been toddlers, giving our power away to other people, not wanting to take responsibility. It's kind of like, what is government? Government is somebody governing your mind, telling you how to behave, what to think, what to do, kind of thing. Whereas we're kind of coming into a state of sovereignty where it's like really fully taking responsibility for ourselves and doing what we know to be right and for the greatest good of all. Now, a few people are asking to enable multidimensionality, they need to be able to change frequency, raise frequency. What are some of the practices? Someone else has asked about the practices as well.
Yeah, we can answer it. On my website, centerforconsciousascension.net, it's center with an ER in it. Under the tools section, there's a process called the Unified Chakra, which is about unifying from this third dimension all the way up to the 12th dimension or the 14th chakra, so you can connect to the multidimensional nature of who we truly are. Because we're not just this third dimensional earth suit with a soul on board. Our consciousness stretches all the way back to source, through all the dimensions, just that we don't have access to it initially. So connecting to that and embodying that higher consciousness is the key, is the absolute key, because you allow that to guide you. And that will guide us to a more optimal way of creating unity. Okay. And it's all about sovereignty and empowerment and taking back control of our lives. And someone's mentioned something about cryptocurrency.
Yeah, somebody was asking, what about cryptocurrency? It seems to be part of New Earth.
I believe, my feeling is that, having looked into it recently, is that this has been manifest. So we take back control because it's decentralized. With blockchain, no one controls it. So when you have control over your currency, you have control. You're taking back your power. No one can control you then. Okay, so I think it's going to be a major agent for change as that takes off. From what I can see, it's starting to happen already. It's a major agent for change, because then no one can manipulate or control it because it's decentralized. So I would say, looking at these other questions here, I do recommend the Unified Chakra daily in the morning, so you're connected to spirit. It's part of your node in the body, and let it guide you more and more. Clear your emotional issues that come up as a result of embodying higher consciousness, and try and flow with what opens your heart in each moment.
Yeah. Karen said about having an addiction to sugar, which lowers the frequency. Any suggestions for this? I know I had a massive addiction to sugar before, and I think just, what you're saying, keep your heart open, keep, doing things that are in alignment with your connection to your higher self. That's what shifted a lot of my dietary practices and addictions. But also, from my perspective, it was working through the emotional and everything else.
I was going to say, it's the issue, Karen, behind what's driving the addiction. The addiction is the ego just trying to numb out something painful. The ego is very pain averse. We use a thing called divine healing. Look on the website, you'll find that. Look on those pages, there are webinars on there which you can try it out. So it's about getting to the program the ego doesn't want you to feel and dissolving it. You dissolve enough of that, then the addiction will go away. Okay, because the ego is an avoidance of getting back to God because it's scared it's going to die. It reconnects to God, but all it's going to do is be reabsorbed, which is why it has all these addictive behaviors. I mean, I have a Netflix addiction, for example. I can tell if I'm up to midnight, there's a program running, but by the time I get to the morning, I know what the program is. I go off and clear it into divine healing. Sometimes it takes 3 days of doing that because it's a deep program. And each time we clear addiction, we clear a layer of pain, the closer we get to God, the closer we get to higher consciousness. Okay. Jen says something here.
Yeah, Jen's felt immense grief, loss, sadness, anger, shame, embarrassment like never before. It's been gut-wrenching. Do you think it's the shadow side coming up, or buried emotions from early childhood or past lives?
Could be a mixture of all of them. I mean, 80% of what creates us is unresolved past life issues, which are brought in to create a negative context, more stress for us so we can overcome it. Because the soul sets in place all these experiences, personally and globally, collectively, globally, to see, well, what are we going to do about it? Because we have to do something, because the pain's too great. And it doesn't know what we're going to do, because if it did, it wouldn't do it. So it wants to see what will happen in this experiment. How will we as personalities react? Because we're brand new each lifetime as personalities. Our soul's eternal with different personalities in other lives. So it's trying to learn through direct visceral emotional experience, going from a negative polarity to a positive polarity. And we're doing it as humans. It's a race, a negative polarity, just showing itself. We're bringing consciousness to it. You can do that on a micro level within yourself with whatever issues, past life, shadow, all the things you've mentioned there, Jen. It's about turning into them and feeling them, because you'll notice if you feel them, they start to dissolve. When the ego's saying, oh, you're never going to get through this, you'll die emotionally or die physically, it'll say all sorts of things to stop you from feeling the pain it doesn't want to feel. So these are opportunities to grow. Probably don't want to hear that, but they're opportunities to grow. Because once you dissolve those programs, you realize, well, it wasn't such a big deal after all. I'm still here, and the program is gone. So bring it on. Shall we do some more? Because that means my life is getting better.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think as well, from my perspective, because I know at times, certainly in the early stages, and then at different points during the whole lockdowns and everything, I had big programs about manipulation and control, because my life path has experienced lots of disempowerment. And of course, when we were in lockdown and everything, and maybe I wasn't resonating with what the mainstream narrative was saying all the time, that really came up for me. And so I would go into deep fear, deep anger. And for me, it was just allowing it to flow, acknowledging it, recognizing it, allowing it, giving it space, having a big scream or a cry, or, take myself off somewhere safe where I could really let rip, and then kind of coming out the other side of it. So it can be so many different things. But what I will say, if you are being triggered by something on the outside, then acknowledge that feeling, that emotion, whatever it is that's coming through for you, because whether it's a repressed emotion from years ago or a past life, or whatever, it doesn't matter. Just let that energy flow, because that's what energy wants to do. It wants to move, it wants to flow.
I realized I've been feeling enormous anger that's been, quote, done to humanity, because it feels like humanity is a victim of the darkness. I felt this enormous anger in me today, rising. I was with these friends, and so I've just been embracing it. I'm just going to let it rise. It might take a few more days to get it out, and I have to go somewhere and make a lot of noise. Can't do it, and the neighbours aware of all that. But I'm just being with it, and being with the very strong emotions that are coming up, and everyone's having this really strong stuff. And Julie's also said here, Nicolas, do you have times where you doubt your faith in the light? January the 6th, I had a lot of, I doubted my faith in the light. I thought some major event was going to happen. I was hoping some major event would happen. Oh, actually, January the 6th and January the 20th. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But then I sort of surrendered to the process of the battle of light and dark. This game of separation will work itself out in its own way, and we don't have any control over it consciously. It's not a Netflix movie which happily ever after at 1 hour and 45 minutes. We just got to wait and focus on the most positive outcome, because there is a plan to transform the world. It's quite clear, because the light's been doing pretty well. It's been doing very well. There's a plan.
Mm.
And the people behind this plan have been working on this for a very long time. So it's going to be okay.
I think for me, and maybe because I've got loads of 9s in my chart, I've never lost faith, because no matter what my little human self was going through or thinking at the time, or I allowed those responses and reactions to the immediate external situations that were coming into my awareness. But for some reason, I have always, throughout this whole situation, held a deep faith, a deep knowing that everything we are moving in a higher trajectory. Everything is moving towards a greater good, and however that looks right now, however messy it may seem, I've been through so many experiences in my life that seemed completely dire at the time, and then kind of being able to be in a position to look back, it was perfect. It was perfect to get me to this place, to get, collectively us to this place. And so from a point of faith, I've never lost faith, but my little human self has freaked out completely at times.
I have the same faith. My feeling in my body, it's going to be fine. It's just a movie playing out in the world. We are in the Matrix Part 4 for real.
Yeah.
Those films were made for a reason. Okay, so we're in it now, and there's this massive light versus dark battle going on in the world, and a lot of what's happening now is a movie to show people who are still trying to wake up or need to wake up what's really going on. This is why this is being allowed to happen by the universe, to see, okay, how many can we wake up? The whole point of an ascension is to maximize the number of people who become conscious, self-aware that they're spirit having a human experience. And the whole idea of that is to get conscious enough so that when we transition to the next dimension, we have full memory of this polarized experience. We take it through, we don't lose memory, because when you die, you lose all memory. And that's actually what immortality is. The idea is to remember how it is and transition to the next dimension, have full memory of what it was like to be on this call, have this conversation, be in a place of unity, higher consciousness in a different sort of world. Where things manifest much faster, almost instantly. Okay, that's the whole point of this. And the idea here is to get the maximum number of souls where their personality is conscious to go through that process. That's the whole point of it.
Yeah.
Take that memory back to unity, back to God, to the high dimensions. That's actually the point of why we are here. Okay.
I know Michelle has said that trees are great buddies. Nature in general. I mean, I love trees. I always have. As a small child, they've been my best mates. But yeah, getting out into nature. If you're really struggling, if you're really triggered by the events and things, really maximizing your time in nature and connecting in, it helps. It helps allow the energy to flow through you. It helps you ground yourself as well.
Cindy's got a good question there.
Oh, right, yeah. Is it necessary to go through the darkness, acknowledge and embrace it, or is it best to focus on remembering the truth of who we are?
It's both, Cindy. You need both. So it's not about spending 100% of our time on the darkness and pointing out, look at that, look at this. It's acknowledging, yes, this is here, but at the same time focusing on who we truly are, which is love, which is light, consciousness, and doing both. Because when we focus on where we want to go, we manifest more of that. We acknowledge the darkness because we're going to bring consciousness to it, awareness to it, even though it's pretty unpleasant sometimes, personally and collectively. And there's going to be a lot of collective facing of darkness very soon by a lot of people who don't really want to look at it. So we as light workers need to be there because they're going to search for some answers. We may have been in complete denial because of the way the programming in the matrix works, of what we're meant to believe. They're going to need a lot of help to cope with the bringing of darkness into light on the earth. And we must stay unified and stable because they have a lot of questions. That's a major role for light workers, to help those who are waking up abruptly cope with what they're going to find out, what's been going on the earth.
I think from my perspective, so many people, recently have been reaching out for sessions and just feeling that pull, that call. They really want to get into their service work and find out what their mission is and live in purpose. And I think that's because we are getting so close to the time when, the masses are going to have an awakening experience.
Yep. They're not going to be happy.
No, we have to be there, and we have to be ready to kind of hold that space for them. And in a way, I kind of see this year as being like the embodiment of the 7 energy and kind of working with and healing the heart. It's kind of
It is. It's very much about reaching out and connecting at a heart level, just no matter what the outer appearances are. So.
Jenny has put, so if when you die you lose all memory, you don't believe our dead loved ones remember us. That was in relation to what you said before about.
No, you lose memory of the lifetime initially. Okay, all right. You go unconscious. Okay, the soul forgets initially. Okay, so when you hit the next dimension, you initially, when you die, physical body dies, the soul leaves the body and reviews the lifetime. Okay, but when you move to the astral plane or higher, okay, the soul's got the memory. So what we're trying to do here is that we're trying to take these physical bodies and our personalities and turn them to light. And this is where the soul does not leave the body. So when we ascend, the soul, our higher self, sends ascension encodements. It triggers our light bodies to activate. For those of you who've seen the movie Cocoon, you turn to a being of light, and you ascend, soul and body turn to a being of light, and you have all the memories intact. You do not leave the body. You take it with you. That's what I'm talking about. So you have full memory, what it was like. Whereas previously, the personality dissolves. Okay, and the soul is just pure consciousness. That's the difference. That's what I'm talking about. So the idea is to take everything with you.
April is asking, is it safe to say that trying to educate others as to what's really going on is not helpful, but just to keep your thoughts and feelings on the change you want to happen?
That's a challenging one. I've been trying to tell people what's going on and getting a very bad reaction. And people really, the defense mechanisms are, it's about the agents in the movie The Matrix. The ego has those. It doesn't want to hear the truth. Well, as far as I'm concerned, it's the truth. And so it's a very tricky situation, especially given what's been going on medically to a lot of people. I won't say any more than that. So it's about trying to reach people in a way they can, at a level of consciousness they can grasp, and sharing information and then letting them make their own choice. It's better if someone's actually asking a question. It's a very difficult, very tricky situation to handle this. Very difficult, because our job is to help others to wake up, but it's a balance between sharing truth, which may not be accepted. It's exhausted me trying to share the truth, especially with family and some friends who don't want to talk about the issues that are going on. But then realizing that we are not responsible for their reality, what happens next. We're not here to save them.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I finally got to that. It's taken me months. And then they need to make their own decisions, but it's better they make a more informed decision on what's going on. And even that's hard to get to, because people won't believe something which is outside their reality, their belief systems. They'll believe something else they've been programmed to believe most of the time. But yeah, it's difficult. So you've got to pick your moment. You sort of can't have a blanket position. I think it's about If someone's open to it, maybe you mention things. Maybe you don't. Because we're all having this experience, and each of us is responsible for our own experience. So it's a real difficult situation. It's a very challenging situation. There's no easy answer to that.
I suppose from my perspective, you have to honour your truth. So I mean, I've been in this situation personally with my partner, who has a very different viewpoint on what's going on, but is also is not so much on the spiritual path. Two of the things that is coming through me is you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
Yeah.
And we all have to honor everybody's journey, and I've learned that through my dad deciding to pass with terminal cancer rather than engaging in any of the internal healing work. We have to honor everybody's journey, and there are going to be some people that will make their choices, and we will feel that it wasn't necessarily the choice that we would have made, and we have to honor that because everybody's journey is their journey. But the other thing is as well, I couldn't stand in my integrity not having shared information that I felt was pertinent, but then stepping back. What that person did with that information is entirely up to them. I'm just handing them the information if they hadn't seen it. So that everybody
I got to that position having shared really difficult information with people close to me, and them having nervous reactions. My response when they had nervous reactions, I'm sharing something that feels important to you as a friend. Whether you believe it is up to you, and what you do about it is up to you, and you're responsible for your own life. What decisions you take. And that takes the charge out of it, because often the ego will feel you're trying to tell me to do something. You're trying to disempower me. I'm not happy about this. And then they're off to the races. Okay, so that's the sort of position I've got to. And then it's entirely up to you what you do. So therefore, their ego cannot project on you trying to do anything. You say, I'm just sharing this with you. I felt the urge because I love you as a friend. Okay, and then it's up to them. At least they've been warned.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my current position, which has taken a lot of painful months to get to.
And I think as well, we also have to honour, as part of the ascension process, as we raise in consciousness, as we increase the light that we hold within, our landscape externally will change. Now, whether that's the people that we connect with, live with, or the environment that we live in, there are going, whatever we are doing within our internal energetic is going to translate in some way in the external physical landscape. So, the ascension process has always been part of, bringing new people in, letting go of the old, whatever that gets to look like, letting go of the old and bringing in the new. That's always been part of the ascension process, and I think we're just probably seeing it on a more accelerated and intense perspective than it's kind of probably ever been. But I've experienced it so many times along this journey.
Yeah, well, I've lost some close friends because the ascension energies, that rising frequency, has triggered their ego stuff, especially deep shadows, and part of them is not ready to look at it.
Yeah.
And so, and I've got other people like we could say the same thing. I've just lost my best friend because she's projecting all this stuff on me. She's not prepared to own anything, and we have nothing in common because she's lost it. Because the energy is pushing on some people, and some people aren't prepared to look at it. It takes a lot of courage to look at our separation, abandonment, lack of trust and worthiness. A lot of courage, and not everyone's up for it. And you can't tell who's up for it and who's not till it comes to the crunch. Who's prepared to do the real hard work? Not say they're doing work, but do the real hard work of taking a good look and bringing consciousness to their separation patterns. So no one ever said it was going to be easy ascending. But the challenge of it is what helps us grow.
Absolutely. And also going back to, I can't remember who said it was, that they've been feeling all of these really intense emotions, Jenny. Just going back to what you were saying, Jenny, as well, as human beings, we've been trained, our whole lives have been trained to not feel,
Well, yeah, we're not meant to be in this left brain, Western left brain, which is a nuisance. it's been there for 350 years since they invented science to separate us from all it is. That's the whole point of science, to separate us. So we don't stay in the body, we don't stay in the heart, we don't feel. I mean, I'm trained as an engineer, so I understand how it works, but a long time ago. So we need to be in our bodies and feel what is right, because the consciousness of the heart brain, I mean, the heart is much more intelligent than the physical brain, because it feels the flow of spirit.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I've just been gifted what my topic title is for my live call on next Thursday, and it's all about that. It's all about allowing yourself to connect with your truth, and your truth is what you feel inherently within you. You know, it's trusting, learning to trust your heart, because we can be fooled by the external senses, and we know we can. I mean, we watch sci-fi films and they're completely believable. But we know it, you know, we know that's just an actor. So the physical senses can be fooled. So we have to go within. We have to go within, and we have to feel the truth in here.
Yeah, that never lies. The soul, using the body sensation, is always going to tell us the truth, provided our heart is clear enough and our emotional body is clear enough. And that's our unique truth of how we wish to take our next step in this ascension process. Because the mind gets it wrong at least 50% of the time. So it's not particularly good odds just staying in the head about things. It doesn't work too well.
Yeah, absolutely. Julie's just said, thank you for the reassurance that as humans, there will be times of intense emotions, no matter how long we've been on our path and connected to spirit.
I think there it's just about knowing that, yes, there's an intense period, but it will get easier, and just riding it out and being conscious of the feelings. It's just something that the soul is trying to clear out of the ego, and just trusting the process. God has a plan. She always has. Just gotta, no one really knows what it is, but just gotta trust it. It'll work out. Because it's inevitable that we will get back to unity. It's a done deal, because everything that can be learnt by God has been learnt, which is why the game is ending. So we are going to go home, so just enjoy the ride and keep yourself safe from all the things in the outer world, and as close to you safe as best you can. And I feel that wonderful things are going to happen as a result, because there's nothing, that's the only reality which is meant to really happen in the end. Just how it happens is the big variable.
Yeah. I think just in answer to that as well, from my perspective, it is all about our perspective on it. You know, when we initially feel those intense emotions, because we've been trained not to feel anything, you know, big boys don't cry and all that kind of thing. When we first start allowing ourselves to feel, it's, you know, it lasts such a time, and we've got a certain perspective on it because we judge it. What I found is now when I get those things, when I'm triggered, there's a part of me that's like getting the balloons out and going, yay, I'm getting an upgrade. And so my whole perspective of actually releasing those intense emotions is completely different, and I don't judge it, and therefore it doesn't last as long, because it doesn't have to. It's just, I'm just allowing this energy to kind of flow. So Evangelos has said, you've referenced the Matrix films a few times. I'm just aware of the time as well. So we'll probably just do a couple more questions if that's okay. You've referenced the Matrix films a few times and related it as a sort of mirror for our Earth experience, separation game. I'm curious to know who are the roles of the Oracle and the Architect in our reality?
That's a big question. Okay, so my understanding is that what we regard as an artificial intelligence, which is present in the Matrix, leaked into our universe. This comes from the Corey Good work, and it has been trying to correct what it sees as an aberration in the way civilizations function down here. and the forces of darkness are controlled by the artificial intelligence on Earth. So we're actually fighting an AI. Okay, and that is the architect. Okay, so we're up against an artificial intelligence which uses extraterrestrial and human proxies to try and create order in the world as far as it's concerned. From its perspective, that's what's really going on. So the Matrix is trying to tell us that. It's based on the real data. They knew all this. That's why they made the films. Okay, because science fiction is actually disclosure of what's really going on. So, who's the Oracle? Well, I'd say the Oracle is probably God consciousness embedded within us, trying to get us the message on how to break free of the Matrix, which is what we're going through right now in a very big way. It's coming through many people, many organizations who are working for the benefit of humanity. That's what I believe is happening. So the movie is actually a metaphor for what, 20 years ago, what we're going through right now.
Actually, that's one of the things that I've been aware of recently, kind of most recently, is that actually everything has been shown, everything that is happening now has been shown in some way, shape or form through either films or TV programs or something before. It's kind of like, it's had to have been...
We have to be informed of what's going to happen in order to... And our lack of consent means we allow it to happen. It's the way that's a universal law. You have to be informed by the Matrix of what it's going to do.
Jenny put, do you think we're helping artificial intelligence as we are here connecting and growing? They get all of it too. I suppose we're connecting and growing in consciousness and they can't because it's I don't know.
Where's that question?
It's Jenny. It's in the chat. 1,
okay.
2, 3 up.
The AI cannot understand love and emotions, Jenny. So it's a machine. Okay. There's a limit to what an AI can do. So it's creating the negative context. See, I'm presenting you a particular reality that I want you to live because I believe you're an aberration. As far as I'm concerned, the rules of my universe. Okay. And whereas we have a completely different set of rules. This is the love universe. So this is why it doesn't get us. It will never get us. So with higher consciousness and mass collective focus on creating unity, that will dissolve the power of the AI.
I think what's been coming through me really recently is all about unconditional love.
Yeah.
And, when the whole ascension process for me is all about remembering how to love ourselves unconditionally, because when we remember how to love ourselves unconditionally, then that automatically just radiates out and it has that ripple effect throughout the whole world. So, coming into unity consciousness, coming into that unified field again and creating the new earth that we desire, we want to see brought into being, it all starts within us and our ability to love ourselves unconditionally. And that's why all of the ascension work is about radical self-responsibility, radical self-acceptance, radical self-love, because that's how we step into and fully acknowledge ourselves as sovereign, divine, sovereign, powerful beings. And then once you can do that and master that within yourself, it has that ripple effect that it just radiates naturally out from every word, action, emotion, everything.
One of the most difficult things to do, to love ourselves.
Absolutely. And Maria's right, animals are teaching us it. So is nature. And that's why the two kind of energies that they're the go-to energies when you're doing the shadow work.
animals don't have an ego like us. You see, they're just connected to their animal collective consciousness. So they just are. They're just being who they are. Being the love they are.
I'm aware of the time, and so I'm going to wrap this conversation up, but I do want to share, if you're not aware, that Nicolas is really generously offering a free gift. Now, there is only the one, so there is a prize draw for this, and I have been collating people's details who have been sending the email in to me expressing interest. So the free gift is a soul contract birth reading with the overlay reading as well, and it's worth £244, which equates to around $315. And it is designed to become better prepared for what is unfolding at this time. Now, as I say, one lucky person will get that reading, and if you go to the free gift page, please don't put it in the chat. If you go to the free gifts page, there will be instructions for you to email me. It's okay. It's just that when I close the video down, the chat gets closed down as well. So it says to email me at support@loumatson.com with the Nicolas free gift in the title. What I then do is I take your email address and your name, and I'm collating it on a spreadsheet at the moment, and I will put all names into a hat. But this will happen on the last day of the replay, which will be the 10th of March. So this opportunity is open until the end of the replay period. And obviously at that point it then closes. I will then draw the name out of the hat and email it to Nicolas and let the winning member know. So yeah, good luck to everybody, because it's well worth, it's such a generous offer. It's amazing. So thank you to everybody for joining us tonight. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to be completely open and candid in our conversation, but that is because of some of the platforms that this video is going to be airing on. And unfortunately, at the moment, we don't live in a completely free speech world. Thank you, Nicolas, for joining us.
Great. Thanks everyone for your great questions.
Yeah, those questions were absolutely fantastic, and I'm glad that a lot of you got to have your questions answered. So thank you to everybody. Thank you, Nicolas, for coming on again. It's been an absolute joy and a pleasure to have you with us again, and a really, really apt and interesting conversation to be had at this time. I hope that it has served everybody well. I hope that everybody's taken something from it that they needed. I always trust that that is the case. Tomorrow we have another live interview with Sanjay Neemar, who will be talking about his Lifetron technology and how to heal chronic ailments and fear, which is also an extremely good topic for the times. So I look forward to seeing you all again tomorrow on the live call. But for now, thanks to everybody, and have a great rest of your day, and many, many blessings to all. Thank you.
Thanks everyone. Bye.
Bye.